Well, welcome back to Imperfect, the Heart-Centered Leadership Podcast. And I'm just super delighted this morning to be joined by Dina and Sharon Weinstein. And we met at the end of 2024, and they have written an incredible book. So ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
I'm very excited to kick off 2025 with both of you, and I've got some great leadership questions. So if you're ready, let's dig in.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, my first question is, in your book, Think Differently, you emphasize the importance of changing perspectives. So I'd like to ask both of you, and I'm happy to have you tag team or however you want to answer. How can heart-centered leaders embrace change and transform their organizations, especially in the sector of healthcare? It's a big one, and I would just love a high-level overview of what comes top of mind from both of you.
Okay.
Yeah, I can start, and then I'm going to shove it over to Sharon. So the perspective that we have is that this is a bottom-up approach, right? Leadership is the bottom-up approach. It's not top-down. Top-down never works. So it's really listening to the people that work for you and listening to the people that are there for the patient, for their heart, for their service. If you don't listen to them and you don't take action on the things that you're getting feedback for, it's really more of a more cerebral leadership, path versus a very heart-centered leadership. So I'm going to ping over to Sharon now. Go ahead, Sharon.
Okay, I absolutely agree with everything that Dina said, except for one thing. It's not the people who work for you, it's the people who work with you. If you're thinking as a leader that everyone is working for you, you have a huge misconception, because without that team at the lowest level, all the way on up, as Dina said, there is no leadership. And people come to the hospital, people search the healthcare system for nursing care, not physician care, not doctor care, not hospital care. 99% of the care that is given today is given by nurses. So if we're not listening with a sharp ear, intentional listening to those people who are providing the care, we are missing the boat.
Yeah. Well, and there's two things that I love about your answer collectively is the front line is the front line. And like you said, Sharon, they are the one doing the majority of the work. And the languaging is so important. And it's easy to get caught out of the language loop, but when you're able to catch yourself, hence the name of this show, and embrace that imperfection, the languaging is key to the leading. So I love that. Okay, my second question has permanent residency on the show, and I've asked over 300 leaders this question. What imperfection does Dina and Sharon bring to their own heart-centered leadership?
For me, my own imperfection is just making sure that there's so many different ways to be able to accomplish a process, a change, however that may be. It's really about being patient enough for that to happen. But you cannot go any faster than your people are coming with you, because if you get ahead of them and they're not coming with you, you've really created a real block for yourself, not only for them, but for you as a leader. Now they don't see you as a leader. So I think it's really, for me, it's around slowing down that process of wanting something to happen more quickly than what time provides, and making sure that you're solving the right problem at the right time.
Patience has been a big one, a popular one on this show. So you're in great company. How about you, Sharon?
Okay. I again agree with what Dina said. From my perspective, I've been speaking about the concept of stress and stress management and work-life harmony and those sorts of things for probably the past 25 or more years. Since I had that aha moment that said to me, if you don't get a life, you're not going to have a life. Well, I have professed through multiple books and multiple tips and blogs and more, including a book that's coming out in 2025 about walking the walk and talking the talk. And I sometimes fall back and hit that imperfection point by not following my own advice, by not taking the time that I need to get things right, to make sure that I'm okay so that I can move on and make everyone else okay.
Oh, amen, sister. I'm with you. Go ahead, Deb.
I think as women, I join you in both of what you shared. I think we can all become impatient, but I think it's because we get excited and we see the outcome and we want to get there. And like you said, Dina, we know what we have to do to get there, but we can get that overzealousness. And Sharon, I think that's just being a woman in life today. We wear so many hats, and it's very easy to fall down, and then have the wisdom and the insight to say, okay, we need to self audit and reset. So I join you both in that club as well. So thank you for your vulnerability.
Yes.
Okay, my third leadership question is, you both focus on healing within healthcare in the work that you're doing. What role does emotional intelligence and vulnerability play in creating a healthier, more compassionate work culture for leaders?
I'll start there on that one. With vulnerability, you cannot ask anybody to be vulnerable in an unsafe space. So you have to have safety, psychological safety. If you can't create that or you don't know how to create that, many leaders don't know how to create that because the large part of vulnerability is making yourself vulnerable, right? And that's hard to do because a lot of people come from a top-down leadership mentality for over the years, and this has to change. There's a big ship right now that has to change. The ship has to change that course. So vulnerability has to start with the leader, but then you have to be able to create an environment where people are able to unguard this flight or fight response that most people rest in every day. And it's about performance, it's how we're seen, it's our perception of how other people see us, it's whether or not we're going to have a job, whether or not we're going to get paid enough, whether or not we're going to be seen or whether we be heard. So for us in healthcare, and this comes out in the book as well, is that I'd say 100% of everybody is in a fight or flight response because guess what? It's healthcare and it's broken. So you've got to be able to create safety. And that is an art to be able to do that.
It is. Exactly, Sharon.
Yeah. So from my standpoint with emotional intelligence, it's all about building trust and empathy. So EI helps healthcare providers recognize and respond to the emotions of patients and families. They are a unit. By empathizing with their concerns, their fears, their hopes, providers build trust, which is critical for effective care delivery and for positive outcomes. We all know that. From the standpoint of vulnerability humanizes the profession. Vulnerability allows our healthcare professionals to acknowledge their own limitations, their fears, their imperfections. The authenticity fosters deeper connections with patients and with colleagues, and it reminds everyone on the team of the shared humanity, which is at the heart of healthcare.
Yeah. And leaders have to show people, how do you do that? If you don't walk into this leadership role with love first and a respect, and I truly mean a very caring, loving feeling for people, people can see right through that. So I think there has to be a genuineness in how you approach that. And it really, like, as you said, Deb, a love-centered approach, because you have to have a love-centered approach if you want to have real change in any organization.
And I'll tell you what I love about this conversation. I know we're talking about the healthcare sector and that's all of our expertise. But now that I'm in that leadership development space and I left healthcare, the sector really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if we don't have trust and rapport and we can't raise our hand and be vulnerable to say,
right,
I made a mistake. This was imperfect.
Right.
It didn't work out how I wanted to. And I think the shift has definitely started. I think post-pandemic, the trickle effect is slowly happening. But I think the best transferable skill that I bring to this space is I've never taken for granted the trust and rapport that I used to have to want to have with my patients before we even got into their medical rehabilitation, because I was case managing a whole person, not an injury.
Exactly.
So it's really easy to get stuck on that extrinsic value, that the cast on the arm, and you're getting a family, not just a patient. So I love the way you both framed that. Okay, my last question is, as leaders in the coaching and healthcare sectors, how do you both navigate imperfections and challenges in leadership while staying true to your own heart-centered approach?
Go ahead, Sharon. I'll let you take that one.
Okay.
I'll follow you.
Um, in order to navigate that space, in order to be true to yourself and in order to be true to your clients, you truly need to, you must embrace all that you share. So if you don't believe 100% on what it is, on your own heart-centered approach, on what it is you're sharing with colleagues or you're sharing with coachees and mentees, you're set up for failure and you're also setting them up for failure. You're not being true to yourself and you're certainly not giving them the best of you. So in order to make that happen, I believe that we need to recognize the fact that we must embrace first who we are and what we bring to the table, understand the needs of that individual because we are here to serve. We need to know their pain point in order to be able to relieve that pain or to remove that pain or to make it more amenable. But we cannot do that without being true to oneself.
Mm. I love that. Well said, Sharon. And I think it comes down to, are we solving the right problem for this person at the right time? Most people that come to any of us looking for coaching, advice, leadership is making sure that they are solving the right problem at the right time. As I said, I think throughout our history, Sharon and I have found that 100% of the time, people are not solving the right problem at the right time. And so I think it's helping them to see who they are, who is their core values. Where do they find conflict? Why does that exist in the first place? It doesn't mean you're right and they're wrong, or they're right and you're wrong. It just means, how do we navigate this space, but giving it word and understanding what's the emotion behind what you're feeling, and then how to move forward. We have to unarm this biological reaction to stress and feeling stuck. So again, it's really about, for me, helping people to solve the right problem at the right time.
Yeah, and if I could build on that, Dina is absolutely 100% right. When you get to that right problem, there is that aha moment. Then you realize that you are, in fact, solving for X. And then you realize that you are going to come away with really strong takeaways. You're going to benefit the client and everyone else if it's within a design thinking group within the group.
Yeah. Because one of the things, Deb, when I got done with my corporate career, 35 years in healthcare, and when I sat down and said, oh my gosh, what did I learn over those 35 years and what could I have done differently? And if I could have solved the right problem at the right time, I would have made more money. I would have jumped the ladder quicker. I could have made more impact. When I finally realized really the true gold nuggets of leadership, I was toward that end of my career, but I had very high performing teams. And it came down to, this leadership approach that I talked about, that's heart-centered, solving the right problem and making sure that you are intentionally there for people to help them navigate through these places where they get stuck, right? And so when you're stuck, it's a fight or flight. It is for everyone, including Sharon and I. So we're not void of having the same issues, which is great when we can talk together and have this type of partnership where we can help each other make sure that we're solving the right problem at the right time.
I would love to just add a part 2 to this question because of what you just said. It got me thinking. I feel that healthcare has a little bit of a stigma because, regardless of what healthcare professional you are, whether you're a nurse practitioner, a doctor, a specialist, a surgeon, a corporate executive, there's this underlying persona that they should just be the best that they are because of the academic excellence they've pursued, the extrinsic value of the amount of initials after their names. And I can't even tell you whether it's clinical or research, how many professionals that I've coached over the last 16 years that when somebody finally says, it's okay to get off the top of the mountain, like your worth and worthiness is not stemming on your dissertation or your multiple PhDs or whatever.
Exactly.
What have you noticed? Because I think this is such a great element to throw in at the end of this leadership conversation. Why do you think healthcare, and I'm sure there's other sectors, but I want to stay focused on ours. Why do you think healthcare has that stigma, and where do you think it stemmed from?
Sharon and I talk about this all the time. I'm going to let Sharon take this question because she knew we have talked about this many times. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, we do talk about it a lot. Well, first of all, when we think about heart-centered leadership, we're talking about compassionate, authentic, and purpose-driven approaches to leading others that are rooted in empathy, in humility, and a commitment to the well-being of both teams and patients. In healthcare, the style of leadership prioritizes that human experience, focusing on the needs of the caregivers, the patients, the communities, while fostering inclusion. But I believe, and I know I've had this conversation with Dina multiple times, it's not just about the alphabet soup after one's name. And I'm glad that you alluded to that, Deb, because it is sometimes an issue. It doesn't make you smarter. It doesn't make you more capable. It doesn't make you any better than the person who perhaps is educated at a lower level and either did not have the resources, the time, the money, or whatever it took to really advance to that level. We need to be seen for who and what we are and what we bring to the table. And I've had this discussion multiple times, and I'm having it next week as well with someone who is the executive director of the associate degree nurses, so the 2-year nurses. And we've had this discussion about 2-year nurses and 3-year nurses and 4-year nurses and more. Does more education mean a better outcome? In most of the research, the answers are yes, you get better outcomes, but part of that is also based upon the fact that you're looking more at acuity levels. You're looking more at the workload. You're looking more at the capabilities of the individuals who are there to provide the care. But having more degrees doesn't make one a better leader, a better caregiver, or a better person.
Right?
Your person is at the heart.
Exactly. And
The heart is at the core.
I think where I want to close the loop on this is I think there's a bit of a trifecta to integrate into these conversations outside of the academic pursuits: maturity, knowledge, and wisdom, and knowing the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to me, I'd rather be surrounded by somebody with street smarts
Yes.
who knows how to get along in life and understands the role of people than someone who has all the degrees in the world.
Oh, absolutely. The wisdom school of Knox, they're trainable. They're coachable,
Absolutely.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's very, very true. I think what we found too within our experience is that sometimes the more letters that people have, there's a belief that they are, like you said, smarter, better. I don't need
More
your
capable.
degree, right? Not flexible, not intentional, And I think that belief is what they think that they're measured by. And I do think that belief is what drives these behaviors. And so when we see that trickle down approach from academia to nurses, it's very real.
Yeah. And for the record, Dina and I have both at one time or another been in the school of hard knocks in our careers. We've been there.
Oh, I think we all have. And again, having the vulnerability to say, me too, right?
Right. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. I always love when I get to throw in a part B or part 2. Okay, I'm going to switch to my Fab 4. These are just 4 fun questions so that our listenership can get to know you a little bit as people beyond what you do in your profession. What is one practical tip that each of you would give our listeners today to embrace heart-centered leadership into their daily life?
Dina?
I think for me, heart-centered leadership is, it's kind of a prayerful start. I'm just kind of asking God to help me see what I can't see on my own, because I'm just human. I have my own flaws, and so I always pray for kind of a spiritual guidance of what is going to be that next step. What am I missing to move forward and help me along the way, because I am imperfect. So that's one of my starts.
Sharon, how about you?
I would say that I think it's really important to be present in the moment, that presence is not the same thing as being there and taking up space, but truly being an authentic listener and being willing to spend the time to learn more about that individual and to embrace what it is that they're saying and be the best that you can be in the process.
Absolutely. Love that. Okay, my next question's kind of fun. If your leadership style had a theme song, what would it be? This is really going to let us know about you ladies now. This is always a fun question.
That's really a good question. For me, my theme song would probably be "Help Is on the Way," because I feel like I'm that helper person. I want to help is on the way. That's all I can. That's all the thing that resonates for me.
Okay, I'll pick up on that. In another day, at another time, in another life, my theme song would have been Taking Care of Business. But now, over the past probably 5, 6 or more years, my theme song would be a song that was written by my daughter called Kindness. Kindness is king. And so putting kindness first, at the first steps, the first process, then embraces everything else and makes it truly heart-centered.
Yeah, and it's a real song.
It is a real song. There's a music video. It's a real.
I do like BTO though. That is a good song, Taking Care of Business too. But I love the transition, Sharon. You're the first person to say, well, it used to be this one and now it's this one.
So at least I admit it. I admit that I love the business. Now I realize there are other things that are so much more important.
Absolutely. Okay, third question. If you had to summarize one key takeaway or lesson from our discussion today, what would it be?
For me, it truly is, and I'll say it again, it's solving the right problem at the right time. It truly is. And I don't think that we can do this on our own because we are only one individual and our beliefs and our experiences will dictate how we make decisions. If we don't put people together to help us see what we can't see out of love and care for each other, we're missing the boat of what life's all about. So we are on a mission to change this. So I truly, for me, it's solving the right problem at the right time.
I would agree. And I would say that Healing Healthcare provides the roadmap for that process. When we wrote this book, we based it upon first a nurse leader listening tour. We realized how many golden nuggets there were and how the nurses really did have the answers. And if we could capture those answers, those vetted solutions that were evidence-based, we could then share that message. We know that we have the answers. We as the co-authors, but it's truly the 26 contributing authors that have the true answers.
Right.
We could embrace that concept. And we did all of this using the Thinking Differently framework. We ask people to think differently about what they are doing. Right now, we're asking people to think differently about healing healthcare. And we do that by asking those right questions, by solving those right problems and getting to the core of what truly matters.
Right. We did a listening tour where we launched the book Healing Healthcare. And when we, proceeded to talk about what's been needed all this time and what's causing this fracture in the system and applying what we've been talking about over the last 30 minutes, would that make a change for them? And would that entice them to want to stay? And we got tear-filled, very teary-eyed responses. Yes. That's what I'm thinking.
People would only listen to me. I've done this. I've vetted it. I know that it works. If they would only try it, they would only pilot it.
Right. So that's been the aha moment when Sharon and I said, oh my gosh, they've just given us the answers. So, we see millions of nurses dropping out and even new nurses leaving within the first 3 months of their initial, launch into the career. They're like, heck no, I don't want this, right? We've got a big problem here and we want to help fix this problem by helping to give nurses a voice, regardless if you're a new nurse leader, maybe you're an executive and you just quite don't get what this really is about. Because the numbers will come if you get the people piece right. I've known that for years. You get the people piece right, all of this stuff that's coming from the top down of making your numbers, making sure that we are financially above our goals. You don't worry about numbers when you get the people piece right.
Exactly. And if I might, a lot of the lessons that were vetted solutions are actually culture-based. They really go right back to the culture of an organization. So although we're talking about the healthcare industry, this is transferable across all industries. And Dina and I truly believe that today's workforce issues could in fact be solved if people embraced some of these solutions. Yeah. So I think that is probably at the core of what it is we're saying. I think that it's also really important to remember that although we did, in fact, write the book for the healthcare industry, it's not just about healthcare. It's so transferable. There are so many issues today when you look at transfer of government and you look at all of the things that are happening as individual states are preparing their budgets for the new year and deciding what to cut, what not to cut. You don't cut people at the core. One of the things that I admire most about my husband, who was a retired hospital CEO, is that when he had to do a reduction in force, it never impacted patient caregivers. You never cut the caregiver. You found other ways in order to cut costs. It's so, so important to recognize that the people are what makes it happen. The people are your deliverables. They're going to create that path that's going to take you on the road to success or perhaps the road to failure. And if you don't embrace the people and recognize the value that your people bring to your organization, then you've missed the boat. It's so important to talk about stay interviews and what makes people stay instead of an exit interview and why are you leaving?
Mm-hmm.
If you found out what made them stay, you wouldn't have a workforce issue.
Right. You have to give them a reason to stay. Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, and that's why we have this flight risk problem that we do now. And I know both of you are in the United States. I'm in Canada. I can't wait for some Canadian healthcare leaders to hear this show because our sector doesn't matter. Our geographic space doesn't matter. This
Exactly.
is a global problem. When I wrote the Heart-Centered Leadership Playbook, I didn't write it to be sector specific. And it landed number 1 in healthcare administration. And if that wasn't a full circle moment for me, unexpected. But again, it's not sector specific. So before I have you finish the show with the last question, I just want to say it's such a delight to share this space with both of you. I always welcome an intellectual, stimulating conversation. The space that we are in, there is not enough Debs, Sharons, and Dinas. People think it's a saturated market. It's truly not. And again, we're human. There's only so many people that we can help. So I'm going to encourage our listeners to look at your book, read your bios below in the podcast episode description. And I'm just so grateful to highlight both of you. And I want to thank you for sharing your time, your deep expertise, and for showing your heart because it was really evident during our conversation today.
Thank you, Deb. We appreciate the work that you're doing as well. And thank you for inviting us to the show.
Well, I always have the most coolest people on this show. We're in season 5 and I still pinch myself and we've grown to 87 countries and we're really proud of that. And it's from these meaningful, positive, aligned conversations to talk about all the things that aren't being talked about. And that's how we bring in impact and change. So I'm going to ask both of you to finish this sentence for me to close out the show. Whoever wants to go first. Heart-centered leadership is?
Heart-centered leadership is about making sure that the person you engage with feels your love and your care first before you ever go forward in a conversation or ways to help them move forward.
Okay. And I'll pick up on that. Heart-centered leadership is the human connection. It's not just an ideal. It's essential for transforming healthcare into a system that truly heals.
Mm-hmm. Well said, Sharon.